There are a whirlwind of reports around the Toronto Raptors coming out today, from Morant to Kevin Durant to everything in between, Cam Johnson. There's a lot of information out there. I think a lot of it is false. I had reached out to a friend of mine who put me on game earlier. When I came out and I said, when everyone was saying Raptors are not interested in Kevin Durant, and I was like, hang on, hang on, hang on. Have intel. The Raptors are interested in Kevin Durant. And every single time the trade destination list for Kevin Durant is revealed, there's always a little asterisk added to it. The Raptors are pursuing. The Raptors are lurking. The Raptors are like that weird little team that's always in the background, kind of just monitoring how things go. Masai is a slow player, right? He's one of those guys who's going to slow play this out. But make no mistake, the Raptors are interested in Kevin Durant. But how interested? How interested are the Raptors? Allegedly, according to Brian Windhorst, they're so interested that they're willing to give up the 9th overall pick. I call cap. Now, when rumors of a reported offer leak, you have to ask yourself who's leaking it and why. So I want to cover several elements of this. I wish I had gotten in touch with my guy before so I could just kind of weed out. He's often been able to put me on like what's real, what's not, and some of it's pretty surprising. But we all know the Raptors don't leak. So even with this guy who is pretty plugged into the league, I don't think he knows 100% what the Raptors are doing. I don't think anyone knows 100% what the Raptors are doing. The only people who know 100% what the Raptors are doing are the Raptors. And they're not going to tell you that they're going to do this and do that, and they're targeting this guy and that guy, because how does that help them? How does that help them at all? You know who it helps? It helps the Phoenix Suns. It helps the Phoenix Suns to leak out that, oh, the number 9 pick is available, because you know what that does? It makes San Antonio a little bit more desperate. It makes Miami a little bit more desperate. It makes other teams up their offers. So let's get down to it. What's real? What's not? Will the Raptors move the number 9 pick? Have I just devoted 5 months of my life to scouting a draft in which my team will not actually even have a draft pick? I don't think so. I don't think so. So to those of you who saw these reports today and were like, I can't believe we're giving up the number 9 pick for Kevin Durant, hold your horses. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true. And I don't have intel on that. I'm going to just be real. I don't have intel. If something changed, but I don't think this is how the Raptors operate. So I got to go on past knowledge. I got to go on understanding how Masai works. I got to go on the assertion of values, which is past information of 13 years of watching this man work. Do I think the Raptors are a stupid team? No, I don't. Did they make a mistake with Jakob Poeltl? Maybe. Sure. But sometimes we think that because a player is on the team, that means the team is enamored with that player. But information changes. They drafted Grady Dick 13th overall. They drafted Jacoby Walter 13th overall. 19th overall. Right now, you as a fan out there may think, well, they drafted one guy 13th, they drafted the other guy 19th. They must be much higher than the guy who drafted 13th. I don't know if that's true. You might think, well, they got Ulrich Shamshi at 57. They must not be that high on him. If they were so high on him, they would have picked him 31st. But I don't think that's true either. I think they love Ulrich. And it's the same thing with RJ Barrett. They traded for RJ Barrett. They got OG, but you don't remember that was a salary filler. They wanted to rehab RJ's value. So the first thing I want to talk about is who's actually on the table. And I think that this graph will show you exactly what I think. Okay. So let me scale out the Raptors core pieces first, and then we'll get into the actual rumors and what I think is real and what I think is cap. Okay. And I'll give you a sliding scale of 0 to 100% based on how true I think it actually is. So let's scale out the Raptors core pieces. Untouchable, Scotty Barnes. Core, Brandon Ingram, Jacoby Walter. I'm going to add the number 9 overall pick to this as well, even though I didn't write it here. Trade, if necessary, is Emmanuel Quickly. Okay. They're staying for now. Ulrich, Jonathan Mobo, Jamal Shed, Jamison Battle. Make us a good offer. Jakob Poeltl, Grady Dick, and probably gone Ochai Agbaji, RJ Barrett, Chris Boucher, AJ Lawson. You can add Colin Castleton to that as well. So that is my grading of how I think the Raptors board looks like right now in terms of assets they value versus assets they don't value as much. Now, some people say, and perhaps correctly so, Rob, are we being a little bit silly here? RJ Barrett just put up 21, 5, and 5. There's like no players in NBA history other than like one or two who've ever put up those numbers over the last 15 years who haven't been all-stars. RJ Barrett is an all-star. I think what you're seeing right now is the league is telling you what's valuable, and the Raptors are paying attention. What's valuable is Desmond Bane. What's valuable is Cam Johnson. What's valuable is OG Anunoby. What's valuable, frankly, is Trey Murphy. Those are valuable players. Why are they valuable? Because they're portable. Portable. A debate we kind of got into with, a clown on PC today on portability and why portability is driving value right now. Look at the NBA Finals. Seriously, look at it. Aaron Nesmith, portable. Andrew Nemhard, portable. Cason Wallace, portable. Alex Caruso, portable. Chet Holmgren, portable. Almost every player who is actually participating in these finals, who has been relatively successful, with the exception of very few players, is very portable. What is portability? Portability is an ability to fit into a multitude of offensive and defensive schemes. It allows teams maximum value because those players can blend into different roster constructions. If you make a trade, like for instance, I'll give you an example, Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges was initially brought onto a team that figured to have Julius Randle. He, however, ended up on a team with Karl-Anthony Towns. Did his role change very much? Not really. He blends in. Same thing with OG Anunoby. That's what makes those guys really good. They're typically players who are portable share a few things in common. They're usually pretty good defenders. They're usually pretty good shooters. They're pretty good off the ball, and they maintain some flexibility on the ball. Sounds like I'm describing a lot of really valuable players around the league. And I think people are almost always surprised when a player like OG's value is revealed, although the Raptors didn't necessarily get the maximum value for OG because he was on an expiring contract. But I assure you, if they traded OG a little bit earlier, you might have seen an offer of 4 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. And that doesn't really sit right with people. When they think about OG Anunoby and think about RJ Barrett and they watch OG and they watch RJ, and OG can barely dribble a basketball and RJ Barrett can dribble a basketball and RJ Barrett's got the highlight reels, and they're like, RJ Barrett's better than OG Anunoby. And maybe in a pickup setting, you're right. But I'll remind you that CJ McCollum, for the last 10 years, CJ McCollum has averaged over 20 points per game. He has never cracked 60% true shooting. The other thing that portable players are is really efficient. Relatively speaking, to the league, they're usually very efficient. And yeah, this is the rise of analytics and the rise of basketball, but the one thing that analytics prove to be over and over again true is players like Trey Murphy offer a significantly greater value than players like Jaden Hardy and Cam Thomas. Players who can just fill up the bucket, but fill up the box score, but they don't really get like efficient offense, and they need the ball in their hands, and they have limited games, and they're not superstars. Those are the least valuable players around the league. So you might say, why didn't the Orlando Magic trade, I don't know, 4 first-round picks and a swap for Ja Morant? Well, it's possible that they viewed the portability of Desmond Bane as more valuable than the star power of Ja Morant. Don't have intel on that. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if they do shop Ja Morant, if the offer for Ja is less than the offer for Desmond Bane. But a casual fan will never understand the value of Desmond Bane. Never. Just like the casual fan will never understand the value of an archetype like Carter Bryant or Aaron Nesmith or any one of these players or Mikal Bridges. People still clown it. I can't believe they gave up 5, 6 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. I get it totally. I agree with you. I'm right there with you. It's a crazy overpay. But the archetype is valuable because it's portable. So in terms of the Raptors' value and portability, I think they very much value portability, and I think Emmanuel Quickley offers some element of portability. I think Grady Dick, to some extent, if he can fix his defense, offers some value on portability. Scotty Barnes, if he can shoot a little bit better, is pretty portable. Ochai Agbaji has some portability elements to him. I think Jacoby Walter is phenomenally portable. I think if my hypothesis is correct and they're targeting Carter Bryant in the draft, I think he's really portable. I think OG Anunoby, a player that they did very well with in the draft, was very portable. I think a lot of these players are relatively portable. And frankly, despite the fact that he's a little bit undersized, I think Fred VanVleet was really portable. So there's the portability argument that portability creates value in the NBA. So that being said, let's talk about these rumors and let's get to an understanding of what's actually available and what's real. Number 9 overall pick being on the market. Caveat. I'm not saying the Raptors won't trade the number 9 pick. I'm not saying that. I could certainly see a world in which they do trade it, but I would be so shocked if, unless it's an offer for like Devin Booker or Trey Murphy, I would be so shocked if they traded it before draft night. I'll tell you why. The Toronto Raptors are all about optionality. They are all about flexibility. They're all about giving themselves a maximum number of exit rooms and exit doors and entrance strategies and whatever. So from that perspective, we don't know what the Raptors board shakes out to be But if they're high on, let's say, 6 players, wouldn't it be smart to wait until draft night to see if one of those 6 players actually falls to 9? Because I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of mock drafts in which Carter Bryant and Kaman Malawach and Con Knipple are on the board. So if those 3 are top 6 picks for you, or if Jeremiah Fears is like the 4th player on your board, he could fall to 9. The draft is very flat from 3 to 11, 3 to 12. And I think there's a drop off around there where you can say Asa Newell, Cedric Coward, guys like this. But if the Raptors are relatively high, then the gap between players 3 and 10, 3 and 11, 3 and 12 isn't really huge. There's a really good chance that the player that you love is actually going to be there at 9. Why would you trade out of that before you even get there? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So again, if you're high on 7 players in this draft, and there's like tiers, right? So let's say Cooper Flag is tier 1, Dylan Harper plus someone, VJ Edgecombe, tier 2, and then there's a tier 3. And let's say there's 5 players in that tier, or 3 players in that tier. Let's just say there's 3, 4 players in that tier. There's a chance that one of those players is actually available at number 9. Why would you slide out of that? Makes no sense. So there was a rumored trade of 9 plus RJ Barrett for 18 and Cam Johnson. If you remember last offseason, I was saying the Raptors would be open to exploring this pick that we have right now, number 9, plus Bruce Brown for Cam Johnson last year. RJ Barrett for 9 plus 9 for 18 plus Cam Johnson feels OD to some extent. It does. But given the rumored asking price of Cam Johnson, given the portability of Cam Johnson, given the relative, age and game of Cam Johnson, given the fact that he was pretty much the Nets' best player this year, given the fact that he will retain excellent trade value and is under team control for at least another year, I would say I get it, but only if your targeted player is not on the board at 9. That's the only way I see that moving. What about Kevin Durant? Yeah, I think the Raptors' interest in Kevin Durant is real. But once again, I think the offer would be much more reasonable. Now, the offer that I'm about to say here is not that reasonable if you're a super RJ Barrett fan, if you're a super Jakob fan, if you're someone who's hyper paranoid about living without a center. What I'm going to suggest here is going to make you feel like I'm giving up the whole world for this guy. But you're going to have to factor in a few caveats here. The following offer is RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji, and a top 10 protected 2026 pick. I like this deal for a lot of reasons. Number one, all of these players are extension eligible this summer or next offseason. They're going to get really expensive really soon. I'm not sure I want to know what a player like Jakob Poeltl is going to command on the open market. I really don't want to know. Also, he's on the wrong side of 30 at this point. Doesn't shoot the ball very well. Is he a top 20 center in the league? Borderline. Yeah, Yak's a pretty good player. But is this going to be like, I know what you're thinking, like most good teams, they have 2, 3 good centers. We're giving up our only good center. What are we going to do? Oh my God, we're dead. I think you can draft one. I think you can develop one. I think you can prey on one. And I definitely think you can trade for one. This is not the end of the world. I've always said centers become abundant when teams tank. So guys like Nick Richards, Mark Williams, guys like this, they become available. These are serviceable guys. They're not top 20 guys, but you get creative. You can play big. You can play small. You can play Scotty at the 5. You can maybe, get away with, Kevin Durant in some 5 lineups. It's not optimal. But getting a talent like Kevin Durant is never going to be super easy. You're not going to be able to don't be that Laker fan. You know what I mean? Like those Laker fans, those freaking morons who are like, I'll give you Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent and 2 second-round picks for Kevin Durant. Don't be that idiot. You're going to have to give up actual value for this guy. And teams are dangling potential lottery picks. The Spurs are dangling, apparently, allegedly, their offer includes Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell's a really good player. He's a really good player. There's other offers that were rumored to include Kalal Ware. Kalal Ware had an excellent rookie season. So, you still keep your depth, which is really, important here. You do keep your depth. And you sort of parse out 3 salaries that in sum total, we're probably going to be commanding more money than Kevin Durant in a year. I understand from your perspective that you may see RJ Barrett as extremely valuable and irreplaceable, but I think the more you move him off the ball, the worse it's going to be. Now, this is where I have to introduce a second part of this, which is how valuable are your assets relative to actual value? Okay. I want to introduce a quick little thought here. So the other day when we were doing a community mock, we had Ciro SEO on for us. Now, Ciro is a really awesome dude. He covers the Miami Heat. He does a lot of work with Hoops Hype, and he's had quite a few conversations with Davion Mitchell. And he was talking to Davion Mitchell apparently at some point, and he got the sense that maybe Davion didn't love how he was used in Toronto. Now, again, he broke this, he said this, and I'd never heard anything, from Davion's camp or anything about this. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Little tidbit that he brought up. And apparently he had mentioned how he was much more comfortable in Miami with how Miami was using him because it's more stylistically close to how he's used to playing, how he's played in Sacramento, how he played in Baylor. Now, I pushed back and I said, look, the way Toronto used him was great for his development. It wasn't great for his production. And that's the important thing here. Great for your development is not always great for your production, and great for your production is not always great for your development. Now, there's a reason why you don't trade Scotty Barnes right now, because you cratered his value based on how you used him. There's a reason why you don't trade Grady Dick right now. It's because you pretty much cratered his value because of how you used him. Grady Dick and Scotty Barnes had really difficult roles on this team. They were left out to pasture. They had huge roles defensively. Sometimes they failed. Sometimes they succeeded. They had, perhaps they were shooting up 2 levels in terms of, their offensive skill set versus their offensive load. And you just don't do that. You don't set a player up to shoot 27, 28% on high volume threes and then try to trade them in the offseason. You just don't do that. It's the same thing with Grady, right? You don't slow play that entire process and then try to load him up with this huge load. Like I think Sampson's talked about it many times on Raptors Republic, saying that Grady had like one of the hardest shot diets on the team. And I fully agree. If you watch Grady Dick's shot diet, it's incredible. And if you were just trying to sell people on the value of Grady Dick, you would more or less put him in positions to just do simple things where he could succeed. That would help his value. Then, you could be like, look, we have this 21-year-old who shot 39% on threes, and you would just pray the teams valued what he was doing, as opposed to, putting this player out, having him, do shit off the dribble, fail at everything. No, I think the Raptors, the way that the Raptors used Scotty, Grady, Jacoby, and guys like this, even Emmanuel Quickley, shows me how much they actually value these guys long term. The way they used RJ Barrett, however, didn't show that. The way they used Ochai Agbaji didn't show that. What they showed me with how they used those two guys is they really value their production more than their development. Was RJ given, more of a task as a playmaker? Sure. But in terms of, his efficiency, no. He wasn't given like free reign to do whatever he wanted offensively. He wasn't like doing pull-up jumpers off, one leg and his game was very streamlined. It was very simple. They tried to cut out the mid-range stuff. They tried to give him straight line drives and pick and roll ball, so I look at that and I'm like, okay, so there was an effort to upkeep RJ's value. Even if you notice, there were plenty of times when RJ Barrett would play and Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl wouldn't play. What would that do? That would artificially inflate RJ Barrett's role so that you can walk into this offseason and be like, look, 21 points per game. There's the value, right? Because you're certainly not striking value on high value three-point shooting. You're not striking value on, he's like a 21-year-old spring chicken and look at all the potential because he's been in the league for 6 years right now. You're not really striking a lot of potential on the archetype because there's not really an archetype that fits into a lot of rosters. And you're certainly not striking value on defensive upside because he hasn't been a really great defender. But by motivating him to play better defense, at least you have a sample size of film study where you can show teams like, listen, RJ Barrett can guard the point of attack. He's a little bit loose, but if you use him as a 6-man or if you use him as a fourth starter, he can still be serviceable. He's still a relatively big name. He still had that huge prep career. So look, there's still some value. I don't think RJ Barrett's a negative contract. I think RJ Barrett's a neutral contract, which is great because you don't have to get off of like picks to move him. See, I believe that, the reporting around RJ Barrett when he was with the Knicks was that he was a toxic asset because he was not doing well with the Knicks. His numbers and production with Toronto has been so much better. So you've managed to rehab his value. But in the same time, what you managed to do. So from the day RJ Barrett was traded to the Toronto Raptors, you know what you managed to do? You've managed to make Emmanuel Quickley worse analytically. You've made Scotty Barnes worse analytically. Grady's analytics are horror show. Like they're terrible. Teams notice this. That's why There's like you go on to like a chat like where draft people are talking, and you'd be like, would you guys do number 9 plus Grady Dick for number 7? And they'd be like, no. Whoa, whoa, Grady is way better than that. So in terms of what I'm trying to say here, I think RJ is fairly valued. Production and value are relatively right. I think Scotty, Grady, IQ, these guys, I don't think they're fairly valued at all, which is why you don't trade them. You absolutely don't trade them. Now, Jakob Poeltl is another player who I believe was put into a lot of positions to succeed, and his numbers, career year Yak, I think that those all set him up to be traded. I think Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett, and also Ochai Agbaji, whose entire job was to shoot threes from the corner and run and run and dunk. I think that those 3 players have been optimally primed as trade pieces. Whereas the rest of these players, including Brandon Ingram, you don't get to trade Brandon Ingram. If you had any interest in trading Brandon Ingram, you know what you should have done? You should have played him for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks so he could put up 26 points per game on really good efficiency. You can be like, look, we rehab BI's value. The Raptors are showing you exactly what they plan to do. You got to pay attention to it. They're not trading Jacoby. I don't think so. I'd be shocked out of my mind. They're not trading Scotty Barnes. I don't think they're going to trade Grady unless it's for the best thing in the world, unless they have to. But I think the rest of these guys are on the table. The Ja Morant story, that news report. No chance in fucking hell do I believe that the Raptors are trading for Ja Morant, bro. No. I love Ja. I love Ja. Scandals aside, man. Scandals aside, his game is so smooth, and in a lot of ways, he's everything the Raptors need. But also, he's absolutely what the Raptors do not prioritize. They want movement shooters around Scotty Barnes. They want to put the ball in Scotty's hands to play make. Ja's not a great shooter. Ja is also an off-court concern, has maturity concerns, locker room concerns. I think the Raptors have typically shied away from players like this. So why is it that the betting books, fuck those people, have the Raptors as an odds-on favorite to land Ja Morant? I don't think Ja Morant's getting traded. I think Ja Morant is staying put. So that's my take on that. In terms of, would the Raptors part out number 9 for Kevin Durant? I think that's OD, man. I really do. Why would you do that? Who's offering them a top 10 pick for Kevin Durant? What are their offers? There's all these reports about there's like 8 teams, 7 teams, 9 teams interested in Kevin Durant. No, there ain't. Yeah, so one team called the Phoenix Suns and said, "What would you want for Kevin Durant?" Now they're on the fucking precipice of being interested. No, man. And here's the other thing that I want to mention, and this is like some 4D chess shit. So I want to be cautious when I say this is not me reporting anything. I didn't hear anything, but this is just me being logical and trying to piece things together. Kevin Durant's relationship with the Phoenix Suns is fractured. He's not doing them any favors. There's a reason why they told all their coaches that they were definitely trading him, because they know he's never going to re-sign with them. I think Kevin Durant would rather retire than re-sign with the Phoenix Suns, no matter what the money is. That relationship is broken, and it broke the day they tried to trade him to the Golden State Warriors. So at this point, if I'm Kevin Durant, and KD is a smart dude, Rich Kleiman is a smart dude, these guys are intelligent dudes. They want to win at their next stop. It's actually in their vested interest that the team that's trading for him give up as little as humanly possible. Why do I have one bar? Am I y'all let me know if I'm lagging? Please let me know I'm not lagging, because I'm not recording this, so I really hope I'm not lagging. Okay. So what was I saying? He has a very strong vested interest in making sure that the team that trades for him is in a good negotiation position. Let me tell you what ruins your negotiation position. The minute he says he wants to go to you, that's when your position is ruined, because you can no longer bargain with, yeah, but he's a rental. If Kevin Durant right now comes out and says, I want to go to Toronto, you know what happens? Toronto has to pay more. KD ain't stupid, bro. I know plenty of people that know this guy that swear he is like a freaking genius. He's not stupid. He's not stupid. He's not going to do that. So if I'm Kevin Durant right now, here's the game plan. Here's the 4D chess move. I'll let Toronto know off the record, I'm interested. I love y'all team. I love BI, love Scotty. Make sure you keep IQ because I see how he fits with me. I love Yak, but I understand salary's got to work. But we'll try to make it work. All right. I'm gonna sign with you guys. Don't worry. You got me. But on the record, I don't want to go to Toronto. I don't want to go to Toronto. No, my desired outcome is this team and this team because you got to tell them something. He's not. He can't. He can't tell them nothing, right? You can't tell them like I don't want to go anywhere because then like it just doesn't work that way. Now you got to give a list, but you got to give the team that's actually trading for you like a leverage, a little bit of leverage, and you don't want. And KD's not stupid. He doesn't want the Raptors to give up actual assets. He doesn't want them. He doesn't want his next team to have to give up Emmanuel Quickly plus RJ Barrett plus the 9th overall pick because he blurts out, yeah, I see a future in Toronto. I want to sign long term. That doesn't make a lot of sense. This is all 4D chess. We're all trying to bullshit each other. Everybody's trying to bullshit everybody. All these reports right now of this is breaking, that's breaking, they're interested in this guy. A lot of it is fluff and bullshit and just red herrings. It's all red herrings. But what's real? What's real here? What's real is the Toronto Raptors are interested in Kevin Durant. That is real. That is real. What's real is the Raptors have called about Kevin Durant multiple times. That is real. What's real is RJ Barrett has been shopped for months. That's real. What's real is I don't think the Raptors are really looking to move off that 9th overall pick. And I'll give you a reason why this report came out that they are open to trading it. Because Jake Fischer, who is very plugged in, quite frankly, and was very ahead on the OG reporting. So, shout outs to Jake. Jake Fischer, really, really cool guy. It was really nice to see him on Twitter Spaces one time and, having a nice discussion with him. It's always nice when these reporters and newsbreakers come on these, Twitter Spaces and just talk to the common man, right? What's interesting is the 9th overall pick is a blank. It's a blank slate. It's nobody. There's nothing there. Nobody's offended when you say the 9th overall pick is on the block. The Raptors are open to moving the 9th overall pick. What is interesting, however, is talking about the 9th overall pick is an invitation to get offers. Now, I mentioned this with the 4th overall pick when the Raptors had the 4th overall pick. And I said, listen, like it's really, and actually Bobby Webster messages, mentioned this as well. He said it's a great thing when you have a pick that high because you get to talk to a lot of teams. Now, taking him at face value, the 9th overall pick isn't the 4th overall pick, but this draft is relatively flat. There's a lot of teams looking to move up. There's a lot of teams looking for another top 10 pick. So the way I see it is letting the league know that you're open to moving the 9th overall pick gets you into the conversation. Now, what happens when you get to the conversation? They start talking about matching salaries. Then you get them telling you what they want on your roster. Now you have offers. Now you have intel. Now this team, they really don't like RJ Barrett. They prefer Emmanuel Quickly. This team, however, they actually don't prefer Emmanuel Quickly. They think he's overpaid. They massively prefer Ochai and RJ. So when you get all that intel, what you can do is you go to your draft war room with much better information and a much better exit strategy. And that exit strategy will be very useful if the player you really want on the board is not on the board, right? Because again, if your top 7 includes Carter Bryant, Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, and you're super not interested in Ace Bailey and Derek Queen and Kasparas Siakachonis, and those are the best players available, now you want to move back. Well, guess what? Now you know who was interested in those players. Now you have an idea of what players on your roster they were actually interested in. And once you got them to the table on the bait of the number 9 pick, now you can start talking about other players on your roster. Maybe Grady Dick, maybe a little bit of Jakob Poeltl talk, maybe talking about a center on their roster that might be available. Again, this is the most important and crucial part about draft time and summer league and all these things is getting these people in the room and starting those discussions. And based on those discussions, filling out your intel, knowing that Charlotte is not happy about Mark Williams is good intel. Okay. That means you have a better idea of their draft strategy. That means you might even project them as a team that would take Kaman Malawach. It's interesting that the Raptors have been linked to Kaman Malawach the entire way through. I've heard from everybody. Oh, the Raptors floor, the Kaman Malawach's floor is 9. So all these other teams anticipating that the Raptors will no doubt take the African prospect number 9, which I don't think is necessarily true. They're all trying to vie to get to 8. They're trying to trade for 7 to get to come on. So now, if you're the Houston Rockets or you're the Atlanta Hawks and you really, really want Come on Malawach, and it's interesting because I was watching Sam Vecini's mock draft and he literally made that trade. They made the trade of 13 for 7 because they wanted to skip over Toronto at number 9 to get Kaman Malawach. So everyone's already, it's assumed that the Raptors are obsessed with Kaman Malawach. What if that's not true? What if that's not true? You know what I mean? And you won't know that's true. You won't, because the Raptors are not a leaky organization. They're not going to be like, yeah, we're not in on Kaman Malawach. Let them think that we're in on Kaman Malawach, and our real target ends up being Kasparis Yakuchonis or Diego Demon. Nothing is certain at this time, guys. But what is certain, as I said, is there is interest in Kevin Durant. And what is also certain to me is beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And the Raptors generate some of the best shot quality in the league. And I believe that Kevin Durant, who has played a full 18,000 fewer minutes in his career than LeBron James, including way less of a load defensively, way less of a toll on his body, even though he's had a few more injuries, way fewer playoff minutes. Man, if I sum it up, LeBron has played almost twice as much basketball as Kevin Durant throughout his NBA career. And when you factor all of that in, you have to realize Kevin Durant could have an all-NBA season next year. I really believe that. I believe you're trading for a player that's significantly better than Desmond Bane. Significantly. And you know what? I can make an argument that over the next 3 years, I think Kevin Durant will be a better player than Desmond Bane. I truly believe that. 3 years. Beyond that, your guess is as good as mine. But if the Raptors believe what I believe, which is that KD is pretty much going to age like wine, that he's the type of player that completely elevates your organization into a impromptu championship window, that you believe that the ancillary pieces on your roster and any other money and future draft picks that you could free up could allow you to fill that center spot. I think that a core of Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Grady Dick, Brandon Ingram, KD, I mentioned, this sort of, this just works. From a basketball perspective, this works. This is what works in the NBA. And while I think that I'm cautiously optimistic about the Orlando Magic, being kings of the East right now with this trade for Desmond Bane, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. Okay. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know what Jalen Suggs is going to look like. Their cap sheet looks horrible. I don't know. I have no idea. What is pretty clear to me, though, is that if you trade for Kevin Durant, that number 9 pick cannot go the other way. You are going to get so fucking expensive with KD plus Emmanuel Quickley plus Scotty Barnes plus Brand. You are so expensive with these 4 players. To not have a cost-controlled 9th overall pick who can be a high value rotation piece for you to go along with, your Grady's and your, Jacoby's and Jonathan Mobiles and all those guys, along with maybe some minimum signings, some veteran minimum guys, right? There's going to be plenty of those guys. Maybe some of those people will look at the Raptors and be like, shit, this team looks like a contender. I could definitely get on that. Could you get a DeLon Wright or Gary Trent Jr. for a minimum contract? No idea. Could you get Chris Boucher back for a minimum contract? You can fill out the roster at the end. You know what's hard to get? A 2-time finals MVP who could be an all-NBA player next year. That's really hard to get. Now, if I tell you right now, next week, this time, because we're very close to the draft, we are 10 days away. We're 9 days away. If I tell you draft night comes, Raptors trade 2026 first round pick for Kevin Durant, right? Do you realize that the package of RJ Barrett, and think about it this way. I want to really try to just diagram this out for you. Think about this entire package. Bruce Brown expiring, Kelly Olynyk negative contract, Indiana 2026 first round pick, top 4 protected. Those 3 assets. Keep those assets in mind. Plus RJ Barrett, plus Jakob Poeltl, plus your own 2026 first round pick. Is what I just described as a full offer more or less than what the Orlando Magic just gave up for Desmond Bane? It's close, right? It's pretty close. I understand maybe this offer is a little bit more because Jakob Poeltl is a really serviceable player, and maybe KCP is not as serviceable, and Cole Anthony's not that great, and whatever. But you are talking about 4 first-round picks, 2 of which are unprotected, very far into the future, potentially a lottery pick next year. Okay, that they just gave up for Desmond Bane. Now, here's the crazy part about this: you would have given all of that up for Kevin Durant and Brandon Ingram. Think about it that way. Use the Lawrence Frank logic of getting Kawhi plus PG. Think about it that way. I understand. They both come with concerns. KD's old, BI's injury prone. This could backfire. I get it. I totally get it. That's why you protect that fucking pick. But this could also flourish into a NBA Finals berth next year. Could it not? Would it be impossible for you to imagine that a resurgent, motivated, very happy, very content, very optimally used Kevin Durant in Darko's system, plus maybe a year of growth from Grady Dick, plus another year of growth from the young players behind the scenes, plus good chemistry, good vibes, good all that stuff, an all-star jump for Scotty Barnes, a resurgent, healthy year for Brandon Ingram? I know I'm predicting a lot of things to go well, but don't predict everything to go like shit. It could go well. It could go really well. And I mean, when it does go well, does it matter that you have 3 6'9" plus wings and there's not a single team that has 3 guys to stop all of them? Does that matter? Hey, good luck, Orlando Magic. Who are you putting on Scotty Barnes and Kevin Durant and Brandon Ingram at the same time? Franz, Paolo, and who? Like, it's not that easy, man. It's not that easy. As good as you think Paolo Banchero is, there's a very good chance that Kevin Durant's a better player right now. There is a very good chance of that, especially in like a single game playoff series where KD is motivated, where KD is trying to prove the world wrong. Like, let's not be stupid here. He's a 37-year-old. Yeah, but he's not 37 like me or 37 like you. He's a 37-year-old all-time great with low mileage. And he's 7 feet tall. And he's still a lethal shooter. You know that thing that I said about CJ McCollum going 10 straight years, averaging 20 plus and never cracking 60% true shooting? Kevin Durant did the same thing, except he cracked 25 plus and he's never not been a 60% true shooting guy. It's a really different level of shot making when you talk about Kevin Durant, man. I want this to happen so badly. I don't want to give up the 9th overall pick for it, but if the 9th overall pick were going out, I think that would just be the cost of doing business. And hopefully that would mean that our targeted guy wasn't on the board. The green room invites have gone out. It's interesting to note Cedric Howard not on the list, but Will Riley is on the list. Noticing. That's a little bit weird. A lot of draft coverage coming your way. I am still in the process of editing our community mock, and I'm still in the process of editing those 2 videos, the neuroscience video on sleep and also the neuroscience video on what NBA GM should be looking for in prospects. Those videos will come out very, very soon. Zigsaw Puzzle saying green room. Yes. So green room invites are for prospects that are typically projected to go early in the draft. Now, there are some famous green room snubs. Rashard Lewis comes to mind, where a player is just, okay, so the green room is typically like the front area where all the players are seated. LeBron was seated in the green room. Paolo, all those guys are typically seated in the green room. It's usually to give them quick access to the stage because they're going to be called up very early in the process. So, Cedric Howard not being invited to the green room to date is interesting. Noah Senge was. Nolan Traore was. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that these guys can't fall to the second round or fall out of the draft or whatever. Of course it does. But it typically does mean that, teams have expressed an interest in picking them top 20. I just thought Will Riley being in and Cedric Howard not being in was very interesting. Have not gotten any intel on the Raptors workout. They've been very, very hush about this process. I mean, we heard some stuff about them working out Jameer Watkins, Ryan Nembhard, a lot of second round targets. Have y'all heard of the Raptors actually working out lottery picks? Jeremiah Fears, Carter Bryant, any of that stuff? I haven't heard very much about that. So I'm not really plugged into it, to be honest. Like at this point, I'm like, we're 10 days away from the draft. Like they've probably already done it and they've been very, very secretive about it. But I think at this point, if someone tells you they know exactly what the Raptors are doing, they're lying. But we can make projected guesses based on what the Raptors have done in the past. I don't think the Raptors are going to lose their minds and try to trade 5 first-round picks for John Morant or something like that. But I also think, as I mentioned, that at this moment, your draft picks, future draft picks, if you're expecting to be a really good team and the rest of the league expects you to be a bad team, then those draft picks you have are overvalued. I would consider swaps. In a lot of situations, I would consider swaps. Like for instance, if Phoenix actually had its own picks, which they don't, right? I would definitely consider swaps with them because I don't think those swaps are going to be favorable for them. That's why I would consider swaps. So Derek Queen did an interview with the Raptors. Don't remember hearing a lot about it. And Samson said we worked out Queen. Okay, cool. I mean, if we worked out Derek Queen, we worked out Derek Queen. Cam Johnson. I think Cam would be great. It's just another injury prone player who can play the power forward position next to Brandon Ingram, who's also a little bit injury prone. You don't have a lot of depth at that wing position behind them. I think a game changer for the Raptors would be if Grady or Jacoby took a major, major step up where they could be upper rotation players. I also think obviously the Raptors will, if they move off of, Ochai, and or if they don't get a real serviceable wing at 39, could you plug some holes? I think you can. I mean, Jameer Watkins can come in and be like an end of bench kind of plug utility third string wing. I think you can get that, right? I doubt we can afford Cam Johnson. He's demanding a max. No, if Cam Johnson is demanding a max, I'm out. No, I don't think he's demanding a max at all, man. Let's go Mobo. Yo, man. I mean, it's so funny how people are so quick to dismiss players like Jonathan Mobo, Jacoby Walter, guys like this. But these same people will be the same people dismissing guys like Lou Dort, Sam Merrill, so and so, Alex Caruso. Again, I think it's really interesting that Desmond Bain went for 4 first round picks in a swap because I'm reminded every single time who had the biggest hand in developing Desmond Bain, Darko Rajakovic. You know how Masai Ujiri said, Pascal's success is my success? Well, I think Desmond Bain will be the first person to agree that a lot of his success belongs to Darko Rajakovic. How much Darko helped him through that early process, helping him figure out the game, giving him some tough talk, giving him some reality checks on the type of player he had to be, helping him with his ball handling and his creation ability, which is effectively what makes him so portable because he's not some one-dimensional, short-armed, T-Rex armed, standstill shooter. I mean, he really diversified his game. And so if he can take that same blueprint and apply it to a bigger athlete like Jacoby Walter, my God, the Raptors have a demon on their hands, right? So I think the Raptors really need to, prioritize youth and development, but also at the same time, does it not help youth and development to be around Kevin Durant and Brandon Ingram, workers, real, star guys, right? Those guys command like serious gravity when it comes to like respect in your locker room. Now, I respect Scotty. Obviously, Scotty's an All-American. Scotty's an All-Star. He was a former Rookie of the Year. But KD hits different, right? KD is like, when KD says, like, y'all got to blah, 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 you got to do this. And, it's funny, like, as I said, with KD, a lot of people think that he went to the Golden State Warriors because he was trying to duck smoke. Y'all don't remember, they had that Golden State Warriors team on the ropes. He left an MVP in Russell Westbrook to go join that team. He joined a contender by leaving a contender. That's what people like. The way that entire move was framed was so stupid to me. He left a contender to join a contender that better optimized his style. It's not like Kevin Durant staying in OKC wasn't going to give the Golden State Warriors problems the next year. They probably would have beat him. They could have beat him. They definitely could have beat him. So I think he just decided, like, shit, I'm going to do it. I think that showed me that he prioritizes basketball fit a lot. And I've heard him talk about it many, many times. I talked to, a couple trainers who were close to him from the Baltimore area that seemed to understand deeper into what went into his decision to go to Golden State. And it seems like everything always came back to just wanting to be in a happy space, wanting to be in a drama-free environment, not wanting to fight every single day for touches, wanting to be in an egalitarian system, which sort of maximized him, wanting to be in that optimal fit, wanting to play for a coach that had championship pedigree and experience. So I think the Golden State wanting to play with a selfless superstar like Steph Curry. So all of these things, wanting to be in a selfless organization, wanting to be in a good vibes place, wanting to play with a coach that really has a keen understanding of X's and O's and how to use them and open up his game, wanting to play maybe even in, and I know he's had some criticisms about motion offense in the playoff setting, but wanting to play in a system that has an interest in sustaining his career. Also, the fact that he's been burned by management so many times, Brooklyn Nets, really bad situation for him. Phoenix Suns trying to trade him to Golden State, really bad situation for him. Wouldn't he immediately gravitate towards the stability of Masai Ujiri? Doesn't that make so much sense? If you're looking at the human element of this, where do you want to spend the twilight of your career? Now, again, and I say twilight very respectfully, Kevin Durant is probably going to be a starter until he's 40 years old in the NBA. Would you doubt it? I don't doubt it. I think he's going to be serviceable like as hell until 41. He might stick around until he's 43, just play an off bench role. KD is going to be really good next year. I would bet if he ends up in a decent situation, he's going to be an all-star next year. So you getting an all-star for at least 1 year. You're probably getting an all-star the next year. You're probably getting a sub all-star the third year. Is that worth one first round pick and RJ Barrett? Yeah, it's worth it, man. It's worth it. All right. So I think if you trade for Kevin Durant, you have a wink agreement with him that he's coming back and signing. I don't think you're trading for a rental. You're nowhere close to a surefire contender where you can take a swing on him like the way you took on Kawhi Leonard. I'll also say this, right? From the business perspective, this makes so much sense. Kevin Durant is box office. Okay. This is a player. Okay. This is a player that even casual, lunatic like casuals would pay to see. They would go, he would be electric in this city. Y'all understand. KD, Vince Carter, like we just care. And it's funny. It kind of brings me to a post of mine that kind of went viral about how the Raptors and Canada in general doesn't support Shea on that level. Shea is nowhere near the level of star. When I say superstar, right? Let me try to hone up my thoughts because NBA Finals is about to start in 12 minutes, and I do want to, get my popcorn ready. But let me just say something real quick. Magic Johnson once said, "What is a superstar?" He said, "It's a player who can sell out the other team's arena." Right? So on the road, they can sell out games. So Steph Curry is a superstar. Of course. Steph is a superstar. Wemby's a superstar. Giannis, superstar-ish. Jokic is probably not a superstar by that definition, right? Are teams really are fans lining up to pay to watch Jokic? Maybe sometimes. People are like, "Oh wow, I just want to see the MVP." They keep saying he's the best player in the world. So maybe Jokic is a superstar. Kevin Durant's a superstar, bro. Kevin Durant is a superstar. People pay to watch KD. Maybe he's a year or two removed from like the heights of superstardom, but he's been a superstar. He's been box office his whole life. Okay. So when I say that this is good for business, you got to think about that. You got to think about that. The economy is cooked right now. Rogers is in trouble financially. This helps. This helps drive tons of ad revenue. This drives ticket prices up. This drives merchandise sales, fan interest, everything, engagement, ratings. It helps everybody. Now, I will never, ever, ever, ever sit here and say my podcast is going to get 500 more viewers every single night because KD has a huge following internationally, blah, 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 blah. I would never think about that. I'm only thinking about the basketball perspective on this. If I was thinking about that, then I would be like one of those media members who was capping for it, who was trying to say that we should trade Scotty for Kevin Durant 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I wasn't. I can give a shit less. I'm saying if you're the Raptors, you have to think about that. This is a business at the end of the day, right? And KD is box office. KD in Toronto would be box office. This city would support the shit out of him, I think. You would probably see Drake back at every single game. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm told Jagmeet Singh won't be there. So yeah, it is what it is. All right, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Don't believe everything you hear. There's a super chat here. Trade Abaji plus second for Zach Edey. Shooting guards have any value? Do I really care? No. I'm still not sold on Zach Edey, bro. I'm really not. I'm not. I'm not that sold on him. I'm not that moved. The fact that he's already had a bunch of ankle injuries at that size, I mean, he's fine. I just don't think he's going to be a major difference maker in the NBA level. I vastly prefer Donovan Clingan to him, right? R.I.P. D Rose said Drake had Jagmeet shook. I don't know if you deliberately mispronounced or misspelled Jagmeet's, first name. If so, cook up, bro. That's a low key. That's low key. That's low key probably OD. But I will say this. Calling a man calling out a man sensitive. What was it? Hold on. Let me read the exact quote here because this was insane. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I want to read it out perfectly because it was like the tweet of the year. Okay. Hang on. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Nah, bro. Where? Hang on. We're gonna get there. What? Why? I don't see it. There was a dude who made a really funny comment, and now I'm trying to find it. And here we go. People bragging about Drake getting a politician to apologize for hurting his feelings by attending a concert performed by someone that hurt his feeling is not a flex. Yo, this is the most underrated tweet in the world. That's one. I'll leave you guys with a message of peace. Okay, so this is brought to you by Chuck Swirsky. Okay, because Chuck is my all-time great when it comes to Raptors commentators and Raptors media personalities. I love Chuck. I think he's like this super positive, lovely human being that I really am happy that he covered the Raptors the way that he did. Um, Never really had anything negative saying. You would think me, who has a lot of negative things to say, might not really gravitate towards someone who's so effervescently positive, but I do. So I just said I wanted to let y'all know that your mind is malleable, moldable, and updatable. Things are not written; they're being written. You can make choices today to make tomorrow a better day, and I prayed for you that you do. Marianne Williamson once said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. To which I say, go with God. Um, if you're not religious, then don't go with God, just go with the earth. Confront your shadow, confront your flaws and weaknesses. Most importantly, name your fears. Write them out. Write them out. Okay. You'll be surprised how saying things out loud and speaking truth on scary thoughts robs them of their power. Anything that you do not confront, you will carry. All this to say, have a beautiful day. Like this video on your way out. Hit subscribe if you haven't already and enjoy your game. Shout outs to Coach Carter indeed. And I will catch you guys on the post game for OKC Indiana in 3 hours. 3.5 hours, probably going to be around 11:45. So I'll catch you guys on that and go Thunder. Peace.